Welcome to the StormCrows TV, the channel where 2LitChicks talk about all things reading and writing. I'm Allegra Gray.
I'm Emily.
And just a fair warning, Em isn't feeling super great today, so it's possible I'll be doing most of the talking.
Which honestly isn't too much of a bad thing, because she's got a really cute voice, so it could be worse.
However, I'm recording with my cell phone because my super cool new microphone isn't working either, so...
Also, one of our networks is dropping us out. Basically, this is a terrible time to be recording, but we're really stubborn. So, YOLO.
Like, we just refuse to not do this tonight. Oh, damn it. So, back to business. Last week, we talked about episode 3 of A Discovery of Witches. So today, we are jumping right into episode 4. So Juliet shows up to be crazy ex-girlfriend at M&M, who greet her with snark. She accuses Marcus of always needing a babysitter, which seems harsh, but Miriam also seems like the more together vampireling, so maybe it's fair. Still, bad day for Marcus's ego because he also finds out his failure to resurrect his dying bestie was due to the fact he is vampire sterile. So I guess adoption isn't a thing.
So in Castle Septors, or Castle Postcard, Ysabeau hates Diana because she hates witches. But don't worry, she'll be mostly over it by the end of the episode. Diana's aunts freak out about her relocation, as they should, but explain Knox harassed her parents too. Oh, and yeah, by the way, Ysabeau murdered a bunch of witches in South America in the 50s and 60s, which sounds like witch Nazis. And apparently, yep, that's what she did. It was murdering witch Nazis.
Meanwhile, back in Venice, Knox calls an emergency meeting to tell everyone about Diana getting witch-napped by a vampire. How dare he? Juliet's evil dad wants to leverage Matt's punishment to unseat House de Clairmont from the small council. And it looks, by the way, that there are 9 congregation members, 3 from each critter kind. So the whole issue of the book gets brought up. The congregation dissolves into a shouting match because these are mature legislative immortals. But okay, that's realistic, actually. That's what the legislative process generally sounds like. And they decide to send a representative to get Diana. And to M's delight, it is sexy vampire Varys, a.k.a. Domenico.
He is super sexy. Anyway, after the meeting, Baldwin and Juliet's dad face off. J-Daddy thinks after 8 centuries of rule, the DCs are losing their grip. So B-Diddy puts in a call to Marcus wherein we find out he is the head of the family, and Marcus can't not tell him things. Down with the patriarchy. Meanwhile, Knox whammies Scarlet Witch and gets super creepy torture-y until she cries. And I'm pretty sure Satu is going to murder the hell out of him for that. Knox is so bad at this.
The actual worst. But meanwhile, Matthew stares at some dead parent photos so he can reveal to Diana that there is a chalk circle in the debris under her parents' bodies. So it was a witch's all along. Even though we've never seen the witches need a chalk circle, but okay. And wow, with the crime scene detectives also bewitched, because you'd think they would have noticed that too. Anyway, I don't care because then they go horseback riding and oh my god, the pretty horses, you guys. Ricasa that Diana rides, that horse makes me want to cry. It also makes Ysabeau want to cry because she's watching them ride and she's going, "She's bewitched him, Martha." And Martha has to go, "I haven't smelled such power in centuries." Which is, I guess, normal vampire small talk.
Diana wins over Ysabeau by pointing out how witches killed people they both love. Ysabeau goes full Olenna Tyrell. When you find out who did it, make them pay. It helps. But since we've bonded now, let's have awkward family dinner and dancing. And oh, yeah, Diana goes from noob to Dancing with the Stars in 30 seconds, complete with actual glowing. She is her own spotlight. Yeah. And this so moves Matthew that they make out in a garden because, you know, that's what you do when people glow.
Vampires like glitter, I guess.
Oh, God, you stop.
Sorry. So, Jillian talks to her coven master, who is very anti-Diana. Jillian tries to defend her friend by saying maybe she doesn't understand. She kind of sucks at witch life. The Coven lady then points out she kept herself ignorant, which is a solid point, actually. So Jillian's face falls and she asks, what will they do to her? And the answer appears to be interrogation. Coven lady then announces Knox wants her and Jill to find out what Matt's been doing in Oxford, because he hasn't been hanging out here for like a century or more already. But I guess they didn't care until now.
While Domenico appears at Castle Postcard, which is my favorite. And of course, Matt is not going to listen to the rules that involve him turning over Diana. Ysabeau's all, please no, kiddo. And Matt is all, watch me. But the book comes up again, and for a second, Ysabeau is like, oh, you want the book. That makes more. Only for him to cut her off and go, no, Mom, I love her. And Issy is all like, okay. But if you don't send her to Venice, they're still going to murder her.
Which, fair point, right? Diana then gets an info dump about the Covenant from Martha. No interspecies marrying because Daddy de Clairmont figured that it would upset the balance of power, so we all just don't do that now. Matt decides he and Diana are totes not breaking said covenant either, and he will be sending her to Venice because nobody needs Creature World War. But Diana's going, no, I am too American for this BS. And wisely, the vampires kind of talk over the tantrumy human child for a second. And Matthew finally snaps with, you've barely known me 3 weeks. You don't know me. To which Diana continues just being angry. Well, Matt takes a call from Marcus about how their lab just got broken into. So in the end, Matt goes back to Oxford to deal with it while Diana cries in the rain that she created because the weather now reflects her mood.
Well, we have Scarlet Witch, might as well have Storm, So, I mean, there's a lot of positive things going on in this episode, It's so pretty. Like, this... I think a lot of people point this out on the internet, too. It's just such a pretty show.
Like, you almost don't care about what's happening. It's just so pretty to watch.
It's all postcard, not just the castle. And, we discussed many times, like, we love the side characters, especially the older vampires.
Yeah, I finally looked for internet fan forums and discovered that people really were angry about Ysabeau's casting. And I don't understand that because Lindsay she's just amazing. I've loved her since Rome, and wow, does she act the heck out of Ysabeau.
For those of us who haven't read the book, I was fine with the casting. I mean, I can understand, like, purists being upset if that's not how it was supposed to be. But I think she rocked the hell out of it.
Well, and I know, like, I think a lot of books always talk about, like, old vampires having an ageless quality, and maybe that's what they were trying to go with. Or, to me, I just thought maybe vampires generally turned older humans, because why would you want an eternal teenager? It sounds like a bad idea.
As a teacher, I second that opinion. It's the worst idea. I mean, the actresses alone in this, not counting Teresa Palmer, which we'll talk about more in a second, but I think the actresses and, the Vamp Mama or Mama Vamp, whatever you want to call her, and Scarlet Witch, they really sold this.
Oh my God. When Satu, like, gets almost tortured by Knox, and then she sits up and she had that tear running down, and he turns around and walks away, and her face just changes. And I'm like, she is so good.
I respected that. And I think the biggest positive is it seems like Matthew and Teresa are finally getting that chemistry going. Like,
Yeah.
You believe it now as opposed to, oh, look, they just fell into each other's laps. I mean, you could still argue that point, but it's starting to look like they enjoy each other now.
Yeah, like, it's much more comfortable this time when they, like, kiss and when they're, like, hanging out. Like, it definitely actually felt normal, finally.
That now leads us into our issues with the episode. And I think one of the first ones is there seems to be a lot of required reading.
Have you been doing your homework yet, Em?
No, I'm a teacher. I don't get time for that. I I just read of Mice and Men for the 20,000th time. I would like to read A Discovery of Witches, but it's not in the time slot right now. But I would like to watch a show without having to read going in.
So people on my Instagram kind of replied and were talking about how it seems like the books are kind of required reading. Like the show, at least the first season, almost seems like it's aimed at people who already know the books, which is cool. I mean, really, it is. Like, that's awesome. But some of us really didn't expect to have to go looking for answers.
And that's fine. Like, it's great to have those Easter eggs and to really like cater to the crowd that's already a fan, but you alienate the people who aren't there yet. Because what the potential is, oh, I really like this show, let me go buy the book. But if someone's coming in going, I don't get the show, I bet I won't get the book, you've basically cut out a subsection of the population as readers or potential readers.
Like, I know I almost picked up the book just to answer, like, what the heck are demons, daemons? Like, what's going on? Because the show's sure not explaining anything. Because, like, I was almost thinking, is Hamish Lucifer? Like, and then yeah, I haven't got far enough into the book to know if there's any explanation for the congregation, but that's a whole nother question.
Right. And if unless you're watching with subtitles, it's really easy to confuse the demon daemon sort of situation because most people operate on a I know what demons are, but Daemons, those are different. So again, unless you have subtitles, it's not very clear and you're like, okay, well, why aren't the demons more powerful? Because they are literally fallen angels. Oh, that's not the lore we're going with. Okay, I'm sorry, my mistake.
I didn't know we had to read Plato before we got here.
Right. And speaking of Plato, there's like a lot of history dump here too. And so it's like, is there homework for the required reading too?
So I actually kind of really liked that the vampires just casually drop history. But there's especially an exchange between Domenico and Matt when Domenico shows up at Castle Postcard. And it's like, hey bro, remember that time when you were a Templar and we were fighting the Pope? And it really sounds like nonsense unless you actually know Italian history. And there's like three periods they might be talking about, and I'm not sure which one it was. Because Domenico apparently only hangs out in Venice.
He loves Venice. So yeah, it's probably during one of those schisms, but it's like, ooh, Templar. Tell us more, Matthew. That's not a little thing. That's not like, oh, I went and had drinks with a buddy and played D&D for 5,000 years.
I'm like, I was thinking like, oh my god, if I was Diana, I would have been like, pause on the entire vampire fight right now and tell me about your time as a Templar knight. So when they're talking about hanging out in Venice fighting the Pope, I mean, it could be at the end of with the Avignon papacy, which is about the end of the Templar order. You can get into the Fourth Crusade when Venice backed the sacking of Constantinople. My guess is it must have been some random infighting between Venice and the and Rome over the Papal States. Like that would be what I would put it at.
That never happened. Italy was a little pain in the butt sometimes when it came to that.
I mean, like medieval Italy, you need like your own like
flowchart.
The flowchart, reference materials, color coding, and someone who speaks Italian to tell you how to say things. Like
that's just from Medici.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I figured the Immortal Senate or whatever they've got, the congregation, is probably set in Venice, is mostly because of that.
Also, Venice is just beautiful. I do like the history, but again, if you're not someone like you or me who can just off the top of our head go, well, there's a few different periods they could be talking about, I could see how that would get annoying. But I do like it. I do respect she's done her homework in some respects. What I'm not sure about though is this allegory of like witches are Nazis. Because we were joking in the first couple of episodes where it's like, oh, are the witches into genocide? Do they realize they're into genocide? And it's like, oh, they've always fit into genocide.
My guess is the witches apparently just want to murder everyone who's not witches. Can then we get into some of the immortal politics going on right now? Because
Can we? Do they make sense to you?
The congregation is trying, like, especially Javert, and at this moment, apparently Domenico, are trying to, like, unseat Baldwin and the House de Clermont from the council because Matthew kidnapped a witch. Ysabeau apparently spent 2 decades murdering entire communities of witches in South America, and nobody unseated Baldwin back then.
Well, also, if I'm the most interesting man in the world, and this is going to be my sort of card up the sleeve, like we're going to get Baldwin off the congregation because his brother kidnapped a witch, you have a head in the box of a witch you abducted. This is not the hill to die on.
Did the congregation of the 50s and 60s just, like, not care about those witches?
Maybe it was more of a, fine, they were Nazis, it's probably best they're not associated with us while we repair our, public relations, and they probably...
But you have Sarah and M, TV show M, Auntie M, like, telling Diana, oh my god, you have to get out of there. Ysabeau murdered hundreds of witches, all, like, entire covens, women, children, elderly people in the 50s and 60s. And, like, apparently the congregation didn't care?
Maybe the aunts are just greatly exaggerating.
Again, with witches having really, really good propaganda against vampires.
Yeah, because, I think part of the point of the aunts, especially not River Aunt, is she overreacts. She's a very emotional, sensitive character. And she obviously comes pre-equipped with these prejudices because she's like, what are you doing with a vampire? And why are you there? And what's going on? And this isn't right. And I think, yes, the propaganda machine works great in a very Orwellian sort of way. But I also think that prejudice is just so ingrained. Like, maybe she murdered like 3 people, so I'm going to say she murdered 30.
Yeah. So it seemed really weird. Like, but yeah, the Nazi witches thing is just really, really not proving that witches should be given any power whatsoever, apparently.
But I don't understand how the power works anyway. Like, okay, there's 3 people per critter creature on the congregation, but there's no really democratic way of selecting these people. Like, we know de Clermont, I don't know if we know it in this episode, but we do find out, spoiler, that de Clermont always has to have a seat. And that Philippe founded the congregation. But no one in the congregation has say over anyone else on the congregation, unless it's within their own species. And you would think that it would be like a democratic process.
I was guessing, like, I was trying to think of if it was based on like the Venetian government of the Middle Ages, or the Senate of Rome, or, city-states of Sparta and Athens or something. But it's a very unique concept of at least what appears to be in the TV show. And I know book readers are probably going to start screaming and telling us all the ways that it works in the books. But for those of us who are just going off what's laid out in the show, right now it seems like you have 3 representatives from each critter kind, and one of them is like the head of the party. And either, I guess, the de Clermonts get theirs because de Clermonts. It seems like Agatha must be head of the demons. And I would assume Knox either passes his down to his kid, or he also would appoint a successor.
I guess here's my issue. Like, the successors make sense because from what it sounds like, if Baldwin's off, another de Clermont has to take his seat. Okay, I get that. But we see Knox picking Satu to be on the congregation.
Yes, and that's because,
like, I think, if I'm Baldwin, how the hell did Domenico get there? Knox obviously brought Satu on to be like, I brought you on to be my ally, not to question me. So it's like, why didn't Baldwin do that?
My guess is that the vampire seats are more eternal. And that maybe it's kind of a case of, we don't know how a seat came open for Satu. So it may be that either you have to step down or die once you're appointed.
Yeah.
But again, none of this is spelled out. You're kind of just guessing. It seems really weird that, yeah, like Baldwin should have either power of say so, or the vampires must have a different system.
Yeah, and again, that comes down to, okay, yeah, maybe the books explain it, but I don't want to read the book right now. I can't. So maybe make it more clear in the show.
But this plays into another issue with the actual problems of how does this function? Because if it's heads of territory, then that means that there is a geographic borders to the congregation's influence.
Yeah.
And Jillian has a line where she says, when she's defending Diana, she goes, I don't think she knows much about congregations, plural, meaning there's more than one, or they're temporary.
I mean, for us, it would be conjecture at this point, because it's like, we don't have enough information to know. Like, if that's the only hint, I'm like, well, then why the hell does Knox do the questioning in America?
Yeah, that was my major problem, is why is Knox so much in Diana's life when she was an American witch?
Again, maybe the book tells us in a better way, but I don't know.
No, I'm just really confused because you have an entire plot line that's the vampire government and or the immortal government, I guess, the creature government. And it doesn't, their government system is not anything that we would recognize really, this council, but you don't have any information on how the council's chosen, how the council operates,
how it impacts the other peoples.
Yeah, why would you obey this system? What benefit do creatures get from this system? A government, if it's going to be legitimate, if it all needs to give its citizens some kind of benefits.
Right. And just on the surface, it looks like the demons have their shit together more so, because there doesn't appear to be infighting.
They seem pretty united under Agatha, or they speak to each other more easily. And we know that Agatha talks to Hamish.
And I do like Agatha. I really do wish we had more on that.
I do. Like, the demons are actually some of my favorite characters.
Yeah, I want more Hamish.
That's why it's so irritating to me right now. It's because, like, I do want to know more, and you're not telling me, stupid show. I don't care as much about Diana's angst, really, as I do about, tell me things that I haven't heard before. Like, I know the stories of true love. Okay, whatever. I'm down for it. But, like, I want to know about Hamish. I want to know about Baldwin and how he
God,
keeps
I
control.
want to know about Baldwin. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But,
No,
oh my God, Baldwin.
We are both kind of crushing on Baldwin now. And so,
Dude, just 2/3 of the vampire congregation members, I'm all about. I love Domenico and Baldwin, and I just don't understand why more girls aren't all over them. Or boys. It doesn't matter. Like, why aren't they getting more people in their faces? And I guess it's, I get it. You have to focus on this love story because that's how it's marketed, but I really blame you for this. This is all your fault. I can't watch it the same after last episode because there are so many points now where I'm looking at it going, well, holy crap, he is under a spell.
So in case you haven't watched our last episode, we came up, well, my mother actually originally said it, now neither one of us can unthink it, that it seems like Matthew is bewitched. Like, this isn't some kind of mating fever so much as it is possibly Diana's ill-defined magic. And there's a couple points in this episode that then underline that idea.
Okay, you made a list, and I think there was like about 9 or 10 points where it's like, she's bewitched him, the book drew me to her, but then it became something else, and what spell have you put on me? We are bound together. My magic showed up when I met you. Like, these things are no longer like flippant lines that are like, oh, that's cute. It's holy crap. Like, do you not hear yourself talking? This man had no free will when it came to you.
So at the very end of the episode, Matt takes a call from Marcus about, oh my God, our lab got broken into. That is a lab that him, Marcus, and Miriam have been working on, like a project they've been working on for probably since they figured out genetics, right?
Right.
It's huge to them, and it's super important to Matthew. And all Diana does is yell about how he's leaving her and how he's going somewhere without her, and that her magic only shows up around him. And it honestly, on a rewatch, it sounds more like she cares more about the fact that her magic works around him, and so she wants to be near him, than about his emotional well-being. Like, his vampire kid just called saying their apartment got broken into or whatever. Like, care about his kid, care about his research project, show that you want more than his presence by your side. And then she caps it off by like demanding, tell me how you feel, tell me, because we're bound together. And spoiler alert, he'll tell her next episode, because I don't feel like he has a choice.
It's just such a selfish love. Like, from her end at least. It's very selfless from his end because he is sacrificing everything. He's sacrificing his freedom, his life, his family's well-being, Baldwin's seat. He is putting everything on the line, and this is super out of character, and everyone tells him so, and they're all warning him. But what is she sacrificing? She's to your point, the whole begging him to confess and tell me how you feel. It's like, maybe put yourself in his shoes. It goes back to, I think we said this in our review of episode 2, like, because we railed on Teresa Palmer in episode 1 about how poorly acted Diana was, and now it's like we both discussed, we're convinced Teresa's fine. It's the character that is awful. She's doing what she can with what she has, but this is a terrible, selfish person. Not a character in a sense. The problem is she's being sold to us as a protagonist. So, I mean, we have a lot to look at for the next episode. But yeah, right now it's like everything outside of the romance is interesting, even if it's confusing. Next episode, we will be reviewing episode 5. If you've seen the episode and have some comments or questions you want us to bring up, please drop a comment below. We would really love to hear from you. Also, let us know if you agree, disagree, or have any insight into the episode 4, because we still have so many questions. And as I said, I'm not doing any of the required reading anytime soon, so yeah, I'm fine being schooled in this way. Be sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter. And check out our book, which is now available in paperback on Amazon. Link will be in the description. And as always, have a wonderful day.
Have a great time, guys. See you in a couple weeks.
Marcus is the best.
Always.
All the time.